Truckfin.
I'm your host, Sabby.
All right. Welcome, everyone. Happy Wednesday. Welcome to Sabs podcast. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati, and Savage Joy is here with me tonight. She's going to talk about another direct action event that everyone should know about. So, Joy, welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry, I'm just sharing this on social media. I always have fun doing shows with you. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks so much for coming on. So, Joy, tell everyone a little bit of information about yourself, how you got involved in this space and how you got involved in activism.
Yeah, so I'm going to be 100% transparent. I was one of millions who woke up when Bernard Sanders woke my ass up. That's how I became an activist. I was very much I vote Democrat and very oblivious to pretty much everything. That was before the interwebs and stuff. But yeah, learning about, how the reality of politics and the reality of situations beyond my scope. That's what made me an activist. The very first time I organized something, it was for Bernie in 2016. I did a march for him, and it was the first time I held a megaphone and stuff, and it was so nerve-wracking, and it was so scary. And then people were so supportive and so excited, and it got to the point where I'm just okay, people need an outlet. People like to hear speakers. People like to share their stories and things like that. So I ended up doing, I would say, over 40 marches, protests, and rallies in Harrisburg on our Capitol steps. It was one after another. Immigration solidarity, Standing Rock, Medicare for All, WikiLeaks. It just pretty much I'm passionate about everything in a way. So I was just all right, what are we doing next? So
Absolutely.
That, I worked in healthcare before I started going blind. I worked in healthcare for over a decade. And then 2 years ago when I became disabled, I lost my job, all that fun stuff. So I saw what people went through. I worked for medical assistance. I worked for CHIP. I worked for pre-authorization. I worked for Medicare. I worked for, grievances and appeals. I have seen firsthand so many horror stories. And, I'd come home crying every day from work, and I did lose my one job because I was just pushing everything through. I'm sorry, but if somebody's telling me, I can't afford this $100 bill, and they're sending me copies of their water bill, their electric bill, their pay stubs, and all this stuff, even though we don't ask it, and they're saying, I can't afford this bill, I cry at night because of it. Sorry, pushing it through. Oh, well, I'm pushing it through. And I was kind of doing that a lot, to be honest with you. But I'm like, these people are rich. These people I'm dealing with are broke. I'm not gonna side with, because that's what you do. You side with the oppressor when you're, yeah, I mean, I know you're a bajillionaire company, but this person who's like rationing their insulin, I'm sorry, they have $100 bill and it's their bill. They're going to have to pay it. Like, I have a conscience. I can't freaking do that. So it weighs heavily on you. So that just kind of, I've been a Medicare for All activist for years, but, then when I started going blind, it kind of took on another layer to it as well.
Yep. Yeah, no, it's true. I worked in healthcare for a little over 2 years, and that was where I saw, similar to Joy, you started to see how little the insurance companies were paying and how much the patients were responsible for. So constantly I heard patients say, I don't have the money for this. And I think that was when I realized just how corrupt our healthcare system is. So we kind of have a firsthand experience with that on the employment side. But Joy, I know you have a new direct action coming up. For those who don't know, both of us participated in the marches for Medicare for All last year in several cities across this country. I thought it went well, but I also, both of us know, we had to deal with smears. There were attacks because some of the people that decided to march with us and organize were also conservative. So people didn't think we were supposed to do that. They obviously don't understand how organizing works in this country, but there was a lot we had to deal with, you more so than me, because you bared a lot of the responsibility, putting this all together. And this time around, there is another March for Medicare for All that is happening this year. So Joy, do you want to talk about that? And I can pull up the website.
Sure. Yeah. So last year we did the 56 actions across the nation, which was, it started out as one in DC, and it just, can we do one? Can we do one? Can we do one? And before you know it, we had 56. So yeah, I was a lead national organizer in that. And M4ALL is 100% volunteer. None of us, all of us actually end up blowing up our charge cards, because not only do we not have money or make money, we actually need to pay for expenses ourselves. But, this year what we decided, since being in charge of 56 actions across the country, even if you've never been to those states and things like that, and just, being responsible for 500 speakers and, just so everything that goes into it. This year, we're okay, here's what we're going to do. July 30th, Washington, D.C., in front of the White House. Period. That's it. Unfortunately, we wish that the good thing about the 56 was, yes, people in California and so on, but Washington, D.C., that's where it is, unfortunately. And, we're hoping that we can get enough people out there that we can be heard. Because the downside to having 56 last year was you had smaller, some had thousands of people, but you still had smaller increments because there may be several in a single state, things like that. Now we're doing DC. We're having people come from all over. People are going in buses. We have a couple of people flying in. Everybody needs to be there if it is at all possible.
Yes, indeed. And I think, you know what? I was thinking about it and I realized that maybe, just having it at one location would be best this time around, but because the numbers will probably be larger, especially in a place like DC. I do want to show everyone this. So this is the website for the March for Medicare for All for this year. Here are some of the stats, you guys. 68,000 lives would be saved each year if every American had health care. 200,000 Americans wouldn't have to file for medical bankruptcy each year. and over $450 billion would be saved each year on healthcare costs. So when people say that we don't have the money to give everyone healthcare in this country, that's just not true. This actually is the cheaper option.
It is. And, I just published a Substack like literally 10 minutes ago on some of these things. And I don't want to hijack or anything, but if I may just kind of address a few things that a few of your guests talked about a few days ago, as far as state by state.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so the article I just published tonight, it's about the state by state, versus national, which route is the best. And we hear a lot of things that are just not accurate. And I kind of just wanted to talk about a few of them. As far as cannabis goes, the fight to legalize it started in 1905. At this point, we only have 18 states. Cannabis brings money. Healthcare costs money. These are very different things. As far as Canada, we hear that a lot, but Canada goes province by province per their constitution, not because they thought it was a better route. They had no choice. And because it goes province by province, it still took over 6 years. But because it goes province by province, certain ones are trying to repeal. There's certain ones don't have dental, certain ones don't have mental health. They are able to pick and choose, which is exactly what would happen state by state. There is no uniformity. So to think that someone like Texas is going to have the same insurance, the same healthcare as California is simply not true. So there's that. Also, Canada, if your doctor is in a different province, sometimes you have to pay out of pocket. So there are many reasons. Also, we see, in California, the bill was just shelved by the dude who literally wrote it. Why?
Right.
It's a hell of a lot easier to buy off one person than all of Congress. Let's just keep it real. It's, how much easier is that? If we have everyone, I think that the thing that's, we hear a lot of just completely false things being pushed. If you really believe healthcare is a human right, there should not be asterisks. There should not be our state, which is 4% Black, with a median income of $77,000, is more important than all you other states. And also Puerto Rico and DC, because y'all aren't states, so you don't matter anyway. So it has now failed in Washington State, California, New York, Maine, Vermont. So while this is happening, and we've yet to see anything from it, we also could all be working together to push it for everyone, which is all. All means all. This is separate and unequal when you're only thinking about yourselves and not everyone as a whole. That's the problem. And when I see people pushing it instead of national, that bothers me very much, because I will tell you, as a disabled person, it does not give me comfort that people in a state I've never been in are fighting for themselves. That gives me no comfort. It does not comfort my friend who is suicidal, who calls me all the time so I can be his therapist because he can't afford one himself. But he's not in that state. So apparently he, oh well, tough shit. We got ours. It doesn't help my friend who hasn't been to a dentist in 9 years because she's not in that state. So I have a really big problem with people who constantly go out there fighting for themselves. That's an issue to me. I don't agree with that. I feel like if you are really about humanity and helping people and equity means all. This is not about us. We have lead national organizers in M4ALL who live in California, Washington State, New York. They all have ballot initiatives. They don't care. They want it for everyone. That's how it should be, period. 24 states don't even have ballot initiatives. So what the hell am I supposed to do? Shit, tough shit. Like, you don't count. You're expendable. You're not within these arbitrary borders. So I just really want people to think about how privileged it is to constantly be fighting for yourselves. That's not okay.
Well, let me give everybody a little bit of context because some people watching may not be familiar. So basically, what Joy's talking about, Red Berets were here about a week or so ago. I think this was last week, actually. Red Berets were here. They are fighting for universal health care in Washington State. They've been on here before a couple of times. And so Washington State is a ballot initiative state, just like my state, Massachusetts. So they're fighting to get universal health care for everyone in Washington State via ballot initiative. So they're at the point now where they have to collect, I think it's 400,000 signatures. They've already collected, I think 100,000, if I'm not mistaken. You'll have to watch that episode from Friday to see that. But basically, if, they got a ballot initiative number, so that's something you do have to get. Like, ballot initiatives are not easy. I just want to make that very clear to everybody. But I did a panel on ballot initiatives with people that live in ballot initiative states. So definitely go check that out because we go into a lot of detail about how this actually works. But basically, by December, if they get the 400,000 signatures, then that means that universal health care for Washington State will be on the ballot next year. So they get to vote whether or not they want universal health care. So what Joy is saying is that it's not fair to everybody else who lives in a state that's not a ballot initiative state because they don't get that option to do that. However, I did know that New York State, and Joy, I'm not sure if you're familiar with this, but New York State is trying to pass the New York Health Act. And they're not a ballot initiative state, but they did it through the legislature process.
That is correct. However, I have read bills such as that and CalCare. There are caveats for profit insurance to be in those, as is Washington's. People are not reading these bills. When you go state by state, the state alone has the ability to pick and choose what's in it. And universal is not confined to this many people. Universal literally means everyone. So my issue, look, I'm not telling people not to vote for it. That's your decision. If you live there and you think it's better healthcare, fucking vote for it. I'm never going to tell you not to. My issue is calling it Medicare for all. It is not, period. It's not. Read the bills. And giving people false information and equivocating it with Medicare for all. If you want to sit there and be like, yo, we need better healthcare, absolutely. We all need better healthcare. But when you only talk about national, when we call you out for only talking about your state, national should be priority, period. They say, well, we went to DC. They held signs with their state on it the entire time. That doesn't matter. It's still me. The fact of the matter is, national should be the number one. And no, it's not, like I said, I'm not going to tell anyone not to vote for it. And I'm not going to tell anyone not to do it, not to get signatures. But what I am going to say is stop calling it Medicare for all when it's not. And stop pushing tropes like it's going to be like Canada when that's blatantly false. or cannabis, also false. You guys can read the article I just published tonight. It's the dishonest talking points, and it's the mislabeling of Medicare for All that is incredibly frustrating. Also, the super PAC thing's not too great.
Well, I did ask them about the super PAC, and
Right.
they explained that they have first and foremost, this is a separate thing, and that there are some members from Red Berets in whole Washington that have joined that organization, but they said it's not even a super PAC yet. So they went into a little bit more detail about it on my show Friday, because I did ask them about that question. I did tell them that I don't agree with super PACs, period. But the way they explained it was that that's actually a separate thing.
They're on the board. It's not separate. Like, they're literally part of it. Their pictures are on the website. Like, it's them. That's a way to obfuscate. They've literally called it a super PAC. So whether it's come to fruition, to me, that I really don't give a shit if it has. I mean, they blatantly said, I watched it. They blatantly said, we're trying to make it one. So to me, and look, I'm just gonna say, if anyone thinks I'm like talking shit or whatever, I have asked so many times to have a public conversation with them. I have asked, I have tried, but in any case, they lost their 501c3 nonprofit because they refused to show any donation proof for 3 years. So now having a super PAC, that's a problem. Also, when you go to their website and it gives options to donate $100,000, I don't know who the hell I know no one who can donate $100,000. Why is that option even there? Why is 20,000 there? 50,000? Why is it there?
Joy, can you explain to people what is a 501c?
That is a nonprofit. Like, essentially, you are doing something. It could be, maybe like Habitat for Humanity. It could be like basically charity. It could be basically, it's a nonprofit. It's something you do for, not for the profit, but for a greater good.
Okay, so do you think? Okay, so this is the question that I have. Like, for people who have the option to do a ballot initiative for universal health care, do you think people shouldn't pursue that and focus only on national?
No, I think that they should prioritize national. That should always be the priority. What people do in their own state, that, I'm not going to tell anyone what to do. I'm just saying, when 99% of your posts are about yourselves, that's a problem. And I'm not okay with that. So if you say things like not me, us, don't talk about it, be about it. This is it. That's where my frustration gets in. The lying, the misuse of talking points, things like that, and the disingenuous equivalency of saying it's Medicare for all. I think people, if they are signing up for something, they should understand what it is. And telling people it's Medicare for all is a lie. It is not. That's where I take issue.
So one of the problems that I think we're running into in reference to national Medicare for all is that right now the current president is Joe Biden, and he's already said if it comes across his desk, he'll veto it. He's not gonna sign it. So
right.
Yeah.
And I mean, people knew that when they voted for him, but the issue is, then why are we settling for breadcrumbs? State by state is a incrementalist tactic. It is means testing. When we saw the Medicare for all last month when they were all standing on the congressional floor talking about it, they were using state by state failures as to why we shouldn't have Medicare for all. They were literally using them as talking points. So there's that danger as well. But, what it comes down to is there is 1881A. When did people talk about that? I know you have.
Mhm.
But why can't this energy go into, listen, you motherfucker, your President Obama signed a bajillion executive orders. You could give us all healthcare 100% by 1881A, signing that. Who's doing it? Who is doing it? No, we're sitting here talking about our own state. That's counterproductive.
This is why Jordan Sheraton, I know he was trying to raise money to go to Libby, Montana to interview people there to ask them how they did this. Because for those who don't know, Libby, Montana actually has universal health care. They were able to do it through 181A, which is what Joy's referring to. They were able to make the case that because they went through a pandemic, that they needed to give everybody health care. And that's how they did it. And Joe Biden can do the same thing.
He can. And the way that he could is because they got it through their air quality. And because we're in a pandemic, we could get it for that.
Yep.
We are actually in the process. We have lawyers, human rights lawyers who are filing a human rights violation with the UN with us right now for Biden not utilizing 1881A. And we will be bringing that in person to the UN in New York and presenting it to them. Because this is a human rights violation. This is unacceptable. People are dying. So yeah, I mean, there are, I feel like no matter what route we go, we are going to have naysayers. And if anybody knows a better way, do it, because people are dying. So if you don't like the fact that we, are filing a UN thing and, someone was calling us out today because we're doing a freaking trivia night to try and raise money for our march, like trivia about Medicare for all and stuff. I mean, if you don't like it, go do your own thing. Look, I'm not going to tell you not to do whatever. Like, we already got shit today. Like, marching in the street doesn't work. Give me some other suggestion. None of you give me a suggestion. You just say, don't do this. It doesn't work. Give me something else. I'll try it. What can I do? Like, nationally, what can we do? We're open. My DMs are open.
Right. Well, Joy, some of the people who say that don't want to march. That's why they say it.
Look, I'm still waiting for the one in Miami almost a year later.
That's an inside joke, you guys.
Oh, I'm sure some of these people know.
Oh my God. Okay. So March for Medicare for All this summer in DC. And I do want to go ahead and post the flyer because I want people to see that as well. We should have it. It should be a great turnout because it's in DC. I think a lot of us are on the East Coast, but getting everybody in one location this time around, I think is going to be awesome.
I hope so. We have amazing speakers. I'll be one of the MCs again. And, we still have a few openings. If anyone has a healthcare story, if you've worked in healthcare, if you're disabled, if you have medical debt, if you've lost a loved one, as long as you support national Medicare for all, if you want to share your story, my DMs are open. Please reach out. We do have a few open spots.
And I want to show this to everyone too, because when I talk about holding your politicians accountable, Joy actually did that. And I want to share this So this is when Joy actually went to meet Ro Khanna. And you brought a stack of your medical bills.
I did. Yeah, this happened last month. He actually reached out to us and said, do you want to come to DC and meet with me? No lie. M4ALL, that is. So a few of us traveled to DC, and I said, you know what? If I'm going, I'm bringing my medical bills. So that's that folder is about $15,000 worth of medical bills from the past 2.5 years, and that is with insurance. So I figured, tangibles is what wakes people up. Tangibles is like, you say $15,000 to a dude who's a millionaire, he doesn't get it. I brought that, and he's like, wow, like in 2.5 years, and you have insurance. That's a very different reaction. He spoke with us for over an hour. I stated that I get very frustrated with people talking about student debt 24/7 and not medical debt. I said, medical debt is the number one cause of bankruptcy. It's the number one thing on GoFundMe. More and more people are committing suicide because of it. And it's horrible and it's traumatic. And I was fighting for Social Security disability and had no income for 2 years. I was taking out credit cards. I cleaned out my 401k of over a decade. When you get medical bills, they don't care. They don't care if you don't have income. They don't care if you don't have a job. Yep. It doesn't matter. So I was like, well, I'm just going to bring this. And we were very honest. This was not hugs and drinking and, no. I kept it real the entire time. I was like, if I'm going to go, I'm going to be so-called Savage Joy. And I said, your tweets mean nothing. Saying something and, doing something are two very different things. And right. I said, when you were the co-chair on Bernie's 2020 campaign, he was the only person who's ever said anything about medical debt cancellation. And you were his co-chair. And he said, is that something you'd be interested in? I said, yes, that would change millions of lives, millions. And I said, even if the bill doesn't pass, having it talked about at least, come on. So yeah, I mean, I said yes. And then he said, I will reach out to Bernie and ask him if he wants to do legislation on that. I think it's a really good proposal. And at that point, I'm like, holy fucking shit. But I didn't want to get excited because he's a politician. I'm like, that's really cool, but I'm not going to freak out. So then he texted me right after we left and said, just thanks so much for meeting with me, and your fight is inspiring, things like that. And I'm like, well, that was nice, but he's a politician. So then a few days later, about a week later, we received an email and a tweet from Ro that he has reached out to Bernie and they have started drafting the legislation we proposed.
I got to address something really quick. I just want to, Terry Hinton said, thank goodness we have free healthcare here in Massachusetts. We actually do not have free healthcare here. We have Mass Health, which is actually means tested. And I know that because I actually had to help someone try to get Mass Health and they couldn't get it because they didn't fit the income bracket. So I do just want to dispel that myth because I've had people say that to me before. We don't have free healthcare here in Massachusetts. And I saw another one here that says we can go to the hospital if you don't have healthcare. We still get seen. Yeah, a lot of states are like that. That still doesn't mean we have free healthcare. I've had bills here from the hospital here in Massachusetts when I did not have health care. So it's, no. I just want to dispel that because I don't want people to go spreading that around. We do not have universal health care here.
And I mean, ask Amy, oh my God, I had her on my show. She was a Bernie coach here, Vilela. Ask her what happened when her daughter didn't have health care. They didn't see her anyway. It doesn't matter if it's illegal. They turned her daughter away and she had a blood clot and she died.
Yes.
That happened.
Terry, I know we have Health Net, but it is means tested, meaning that everybody here, look up the numbers of people in Massachusetts that don't have health insurance. Even with Health Net, there is a bracket, an income bracket that you have to meet in order to join it. You don't just get health insurance. So no state in this country right now has universal health care. That's not the same thing. So I just want to make that clear. I don't want people to get confused.
Same with Medicaid expansions. Only some states have that, and it is also means tested and goes by income.
Right. Creative Experiment said, don't you think it's a scam that weed was legal before Medicare for all? I think weed was made legal to shut people up because Blacks still in jail for weed. Also, that's profitable. Like, that's a business, So that's something like that is gonna, Eric said, what we have is subsidized health insurance. Right. Like it's not the same thing.
Insurance is not healthcare. We need to stop saying insurance equals healthcare. It's just not. There are parameters, and even if it's free insurance because it's Medicaid or what have you, you still need to provide documents and renew every 6 months and be within a certain guideline and stuff. I've worked for medical assistants. It shouldn't be that complicated.
Right. Yeah, Terry said you have to be poor. Right. That's not universal. That's my point. It's means tested. It's not the same thing. So I do want to go ahead and share the date so people know when this event is taking place. Guys, you have months ahead notice. Same like last year when Joy and other organizers for the March for Medicare for All came on. I gave you months and months notice. So here you go. Save the date. This is July 30th. It's going to be in Washington, D.C. at Union Square. So definitely save that date, guys. Mark your calendar. If you're in the D.C. area, definitely try, to come if you can. But this is a big deal. This is a big deal. We really need to make noise in D.C. We really need the politicians to really hear us. And, last year, there was only one member of the squad that attended, and that was Cori Bush. But Cori Bush
she showed up. I was right there. She showed up. She took a few pictures. She didn't say a damn word. And she left.
Right. And she also said when Max Blumenthal interviewed her, she said that's Bernie Sanders and Pramila Jayapal's bill. So that's that. So anyway, we got to put the pressure on them. July 30th, save the date, DC. Joy, really quick before you go, can you tell everyone where they can find you?
Yeah, so I've had a YouTube show. Next month it'll be 5 years. So you can subscribe, Savage Joy Marie Mann, YouTube and Rockfin. I have a Substack. I have a Patreon. You could buy my Shitlib parody book at savageandpat.com. I don't know, I'm everywhere. My Twitter's the best place because I post a lot on there. And it's so important to join us July 30th, even if you just come for the speakers it's so important to give people a platform who are disabled and, just to give people a voice. We need to hear from people like you who are suffering. That's what this is all about. So, and if you can swing a few dollars our way, we, M4ALL.org, we were told that even a handicap accessible ramp to the stage is $1,000.
Yep.
So we're having all these expenses that are just insane. We kind of need all the help we can get. But thank you so much, Sabby. I always love coming on here.
Anytime. Talk to you later.
See ya. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right. And I want to mention this comment here from Greg Bruce. I live in Massachusetts and I have health insurance and I owe the place I get my allergy shots over $2,000. Yeah. Like it's the medical expenses it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Quick shout out to what the for becoming a Sabby member. Whoop, whoop. Shout out. Welcome. Okay. Let me go ahead and give a shout out to everyone who's a Sabby patron. I think I forgot to, I don't know if I mentioned you guys last night or at all. I think I forgot. But here we go. Thank you, everyone who's a Sabby patron. If you're interested, I have 5 categories: members, Sabby, Sabsters, Sabinators, and Ultimate. All of their names are listed here. Thank you guys so much. I really do appreciate your help. And you can also see their names scrolling across the bottom of the screen on the little ticker. All right, guys, what are we talking about tonight? Let's go ahead and get into it. Nothing to it but to do it. All right, so tonight we are discussing Briahna Joy Gray quizzes Amy Vilela. That was an interesting conversation. We're going to get into that. I'm also going to discuss Texas school shooting. Yes, another one has happened and we need to have a discussion. And of course, Medicare for All March is back. That was Joy. Joy was just here to discuss that. So I am excited that there's another March this year. So looking forward to that. Okay. Do I have a comment on Rockfin? Yes, I do. Huh. I can never do this the way that. Okay. Thanks, Eric. All right, Roger, thank you for the tip on Rockfin. Joy, I can't speak for other states, but in New York State, no one fighting for New York Health Act is being selfish and saying, screw you, oh well. Plus, no one is trying to hate on your national approach. However, there is something to be said about dividing the money and resources of healthcare companies throughout the country instead of it being focused in one place like DC, which is a much bigger fight. Also, I read New York Health Act more than once. I didn't see anything in there that said the insurance companies would still be alive. The only thing I see in there regarding insurance is elimination. If you can point out the page, the section, and the line, it would be most appreciative. Matter of fact, we wouldn't only be covering everyone in New York State, but those who work here as well. New York State touches 5 states. We will be covering those states also. Thank you so much for that, Roger Meadows. And quick shout out to Terry Hinton for the super chat. Thank you, Sabby. You are welcome. Okay, let's go ahead and get into this story with Briahna Joy Gray. I do want to go ahead and discuss that. I'm assigning to type V and C really quick. I am going to be doing a call-in episode tomorrow afternoon because we need to talk about strategy in reference to progressives, in reference to what we need to do instead of doing the Justice Democrats model. That's what I'm calling it. That's what we're going to do. So we're going to have that discussion tomorrow. Definitely tune in. I'll be sure to send that out via my Substack. So make sure you're signed up to my newsletter because that because that sends you live stream alerts. But I also send like call-in solo call-in episodes on there as well. So this will only be on call-in, not on YouTube. But let's get into this discussion with Bri and Amy Vilela. So I do want to say before I get into this, I am very familiar with Amy Vilela. I cannot say her name right. Amy Vilela. She ran for Congress in 2018. So she was a part of that group, Paula Jean Swearengin, Cori Bush, AOC. She was a part of that group. She was on Knocking Down the House. If you haven't seen that documentary, she talked about her story. I do want to say I am very empathetic with Amy's story. What happened with Amy is it's really messed up, but it really just shows you just how corrupt this healthcare system is in this country. So for people who do not know, Amy's daughter died because she didn't have health insurance, long story short. And it's sad. It's really sad, but it happens, right? Now, I'm very empathetic with her story. But the discussion that takes place here is about what are new progressive candidates going to do differently than the squad when they get into DC. So let's go ahead and get into this discussion because I think that Bree really brought up some good points here. Let's go in.
So when you say, you want to force people to reckon with this and force elected to would give lip service to this stuff and, on paper support the Medicare for All bill, you want to, force them into a more active position. Does that mean something like, the force the vote moment where you'd say potentially withhold your vote for Nancy Pelosi as Speaker of the House if that were to come up or something similar to what were to come up, or withhold your vote for some other piece of meaningful must-pass legislation, the way that some people were advocating that squad members withhold their vote for the COVID relief bill until $15 minimum wage was included in the bill. Is that...
Hold on one second. I'm letting the video catch up.
That the kind of strategy that you think you'd be comfortable with as an elected? Because I think absent those sorts of opportunities, it's been a struggle, I think, for other very well-intentioned electeds like Cori Bush to really make their policy preferences known or do anything about them, despite feeling very passionately about them and being very...
Hold on, guys. This is like freezing and it's stuttering a little bit in tight VNC.
Very committed to them.
Okay.
Right.
So that was the question. Okay. So Bree's explaining, what the squad members have done, and she wants to know what is Amy going to do differently. Right. And so at the beginning of this conversation, she mentioned if you support these issues, and she said on paper, and I think that's important that she said that because a lot of candidates support the issues when they're running on paper, but then they win and they get into DC and they don't fight for those issues. So force the vote was really an exposing moment, right? And other legislation that they passed on. So I'm glad that she mentioned that. Now I want you, again, what are you going to do differently? Listen to Amy's response.
We talk about that, there needs to be, first of all, the more that we get in, the more power you have. And I'm not saying that's the only answer. That's one of the steps. The other step is also we need to start being better at strategizing. If you're wanting to do something like force vote, I think there needs to be a lot of strategy and talking behind it. And I think the quickness of that decision was, pretty hard to strategize through.
I don't think so. Let's go back here just for a second, because I'm going to chime in for just a second.
One of the steps. The other step is also we need to start being better at strategizing. If you're wanting to do something like force.
Sorry. I'm all over
or
the
do
place
anything
tonight,
about them, despite feeling
Okay.
very passionately about them and being very committed to them.
Right. When we talk about that, there needs to be, first of all, the more that we get in, the more power you have. And I'm not saying that.
Let's talk about that. Because this is a comment I've heard a lot of people say, that we need to increase the numbers, right? The more we get in, the more power that we have. I'm about to debunk that. Here's the problem. I actually don't agree with that. Because first of all, you have a set of progressives that are there now, right? You have members of the squad and other people who consider themselves to be progressive, like Rokana and Pramila Jayapal, whatevs. You already have a set there. Now, for the past couple of years, we have watched them vote along with corporate Democrats. We have watched them go along with corporate Democrats. So the new progressive candidates that are coming into DC, coming into the House, they have two options. They're either going to fight and hold the line, which is what the squad was supposed to do, or they're going to do what's easier and they're going to cave and go along with the corporate Democrats, just like the squad has done. Now, having said that, the fact that the squad has been going along with corporate Democrats for the past couple of years, they've been voting with them on legislation where they could have held the line. I do not believe that the squad all of a sudden is going to change the way that they have been behaving and go along with the new progressives and fight. Now, some may come back to me and say, well, where's your proof? What evidence do you have? What makes you believe that? Well, most recently, them choosing not to support Nina Turner. Because what they just showed us, when they are threatened, they will cave. If they won't do something as simple as that, as even endorsing Nina Turner or saying, hey, I support Nina Turner. If they can't do that, do I believe that they are going to say, oh, we got more progressives in here now. Now we're going to fight? Hell to the no. Because they know that they will be threatened again. And if those threats didn't mean much to them, they wouldn't have caved. If it didn't mean much to them to lose committee assignments or to have the Democratic Party primary challenge them to beat them, or have the Democratic Party threaten to throw in all this big money so that they'll lose their primaries, if that bothered them to the point where they could not say, man, I support Nina Turner, I'm going to stand by her because she stood by me and I think she is the better candidate. If they cave to that, I do not believe that there is any way in hell that they are all of a sudden going to say, we have new, more progressives now, I'm going to start fighting with them. I don't buy it. I don't buy it. So when people keep telling me, and I hear a lot of people saying that we need to increase the numbers, and then they're going to go ahead and start fighting, let's not count the squad as a part of those numbers. So the new progressives that are coming in, they're going to be on their own, or they're going to have to go along with corporate Democrats to fit in. Those are the choices. Those are the options. Mark my words. Let's see. Let's see. But I'm willing to bet they are not all of a sudden going to decide to start fighting. And I have another example that I can point to. Cori Bush. When Max Blumenthal interviewed Cori Bush and he asked her, why didn't you force the vote? Cori Bush's response was, that's Bernie Sanders and Pramila Jayapal's bill. So that right there tells me that because it's not her bill, she's not going to fight for it. So why do we think that if they get more numbers and more people, all of a sudden they're going to change what they've been doing for the past couple years? They're not going to. We got to realize the fact that AOC's been there since what? She won in 2018. She's been there a couple years now. They know that if they start fighting, that the Democratic Party is going to do everything that they can to push them out. They'll be gone. And they don't want that. Now let's go back into the video.
That's the only answer. That's one of the steps. The other step is also we need to start being better at strategizing. If you're wanting to do something like force vote, I think there needs to be a lot of strategy and talking behind it. And I think the quickness of that decision was, pretty hard to strategize through. But
No. No. Okay. So yes, it happened rather quickly, but I just told you what Cori Bush said to Max Blumenthal. She told him that's Bernie Sanders and Pramila Jayapal's bill. So even if force the vote had been planned months and months before and they were notified about it, Cori Bush just let you know that because it was not her bill, she was not going to fight for it. Let's not use the excuse that forced the vote happened so quickly and that's why they decided not to do it. They didn't do it because they wanted to protect their careers, because they wanted to keep their seats. And they knew that if they went against Nancy Pelosi, that the Democratic Party would do everything that they could to push them out. Let's go back in.
I am definitely for holding the line. I bring this up a lot. You know, I'm running against a complacent status quo corporate politician who just shows up to vote and is not out there fighting. And when I talk about fighting, I'm talking about holding the line. Republicans are very good at this. They'll come in and make their demands. They won't pass stuff. They will get what they want. They're very good at it. And I was very pleased to see with the Build Back Better that the progressives as a whole actually held the line. We need to do more of that. Like, we're not going to give you this infrastructure bill that we know you want unless we get X, Y, and Z. We've not been able to get everything in X, Y, and Z that we wanted in the Build Back Better bill, but at least we could have gotten something if Democrats as a whole and the progressives, you know, as a whole, would have, you know, held their place. We could have forced a vote on this. We need to have more of that. So I am definitely in that mindset that, listen, I'm not going to Congress just to sign on to any old bill.
Two things. People keep bringing up the infrastructure bill, but to my understanding, I thought those two bills were supposed to go together. That's how they were supposed to hold the line. And the bills didn't end up going together. So did they really hold the line like that? I don't think they really did. The other thing that she just mentioned here, right here.
If, you know, as a whole, would have, you know, held their place, we could have forced a vote on this. We need to have more of that. So I am definitely in that mindset that, listen, I'm not going to Congress just to sign on to any old bill. I'm not selling out my soul just to appease everyone. I'm going there because I knew I made a promise that I would make a difference.
But the thing is, all of them said that. All of them said, like, no, I'm not going to go along with them. I'm going in there to fight. And what do? They vote with them. They sign on to the same bills that the corporate Democrats sign on to because they know what will happen if they don't. We've heard this before. That's the thing. We've heard this so many times.
It's a sacred promise to me, and I will go there to fight. This is not about seniority. I mean, if I was about, you know, prestige and stuff, I could just stay to CFL. This to me has been about a fight to make sure that we're going to get the legislation we need. That is difficult. I mean, I know it's difficult, and I'm not in Congress now, so I'm, you know, it's easier, I guess, to say from this side. But for me, this is very, very personal, and I know that's what I'd like to join and help solidify and push, you know, our members to actually stand united and start drawing our own lines.
So Senator Turner has said after her loss that progressive allies of hers that had endorsed her in her last race were threatened to not endorse her this time around. There's no specifics about what the threat was or who specifically she was talking about, but we know, for instance, that Cori Bush endorsed her last time. I saw Cori Bush at an event featuring Nina Turner and several other Black female candidates, offering her support, you know, helping, you know, encouraging the crowd to support the candidates. She was the only elected who showed up. And I remember appreciating that moment. And then I was confused when a few weeks later, the Progressive Caucus endorsed Shontel Brown, and we all know how that story went. Additionally, Progressive...
Which I predicted that, by the way. I predicted that they would support Shontel Brown. So it wasn't a surprise to me.
Progressive sees things like that happening. People, they see someone like Cori Bush, who obviously has a great deal of affection for and a commitment to the ideals that Nina Turner was running for, ultimately declined to speak out in that moment and talk and endorse her despite the Congressional Progressive Caucus's endorsement of her opponent. We see what happened with every progressive lining up and voting for this $40 billion in funding to Ukraine, with the only people objecting and calling attention to the fact that America always has money for war, but not for the poor, are these right-wing Republicans who...
And Tupac. Let's remember, because Tupac actually said that a long time ago. Money for war, but you can't feed the poor.
I have no interest in giving any credit or applauding, but at the end of the day, are outflanking our best progressives in the House on issues relating to anti-interventionism. And, you know, you see the kind of pattern emerging among progressives where when they're tough votes, where they actually need progressives to pass legislation like Iron Dome funding, there seems to be a kind of rotating villain of the left that's happening where, okay, this 3 takes the hit this time and does the bad vote, and then another 3 takes the hit next time and does the bad vote. And
it's all coordinated. It's all coordinated. And I've noticed it because every time I've seen them pass these legislations, every time I look up to see who voted which way, so you can see who's who. And Bree's right. That's what they do. They rotate amongst each other. Sometimes it's Jamal Bowman. Sometimes it's AOC. Sometimes it's Rashida Tlaib. That's what they do. So you can't try to put it on all on one person. I believe that's a coordinated effort. I really do.
At the end of the day, from the outside at least, and I would love to talk to any of those progressives if they're willing to come on the show and explain these votes and these behaviors. From the outside, it really undermines confidence of the voter, of the progressive voter. Because it feels like at the end of the day, even though maybe 75% of your votes are good or 90% of your votes are good, they will always figure out, the establishment always figures out how to squeeze just enough blood from the stone to get what they want. And ultimately, they'll get Shontel Brown in office. They'll get their Iron Dome funding. They'll get their $40 billion for Ukraine, which is more money than Russia's entire military budget. And the, you know, hyper-capitalist, militarist world where we have 500,000 homeless people, 68,000 people die of lack of health care every year, and stories like yours are created every day, keeps on trucking. And so what I'm pressing you on is not at all about your commitment. It's this fundamental question that people are pondering, which is commitment enough when we've now seen over the last 4 years a demonstration of how good the establishment is at undermining even those people that have the best values and the deepest personal commitments to their ideals.
Yes, and let's all remember, Nancy Pelosi was once a progressive. How'd that turn out?
Mm-hmm. You know, again, I can understand the frustration. And, you know, when it comes down to electoral politics, you know, we're talking about, you know, a very small handful of people versus how many people are, you know, in Congress.
But I have to interrupt here because this is where everyone keeps saying, well, they're small numbers. There's not enough of them. They already have enough people there right now to actually push legislation through, to have some type of leverage, and they don't do it. They choose not to do it. That's on purpose. So what we have now in DC is we have a representation of progressive policies. We have the representation there, but we don't actually have the action. That's a problem. So you have all these people that can say they're progressive because they agree on the issues, but they don't vote that way. They're not fighting for them. All we have with them right now is representation. And I keep harping this because they keep bringing up the numbers. And I'm telling you, they already have the numbers right now to hold up legislation and prevent things from passing. And they're choosing not to do it.
To me, it's not either or. It's got to be both. We have to, like, I go back to this again. We have to increase the power of the people that are there in numbers and start gaining some of that power, have enough that if you vote away, that, you know, you will get, you know, some pushback, blowback on, do you have enough votes to actually stop the legislation?
Well, yes, that's
from
the
going?
whole.
Let me comment here and then I'll let Bree go on. Amy's saying that we need to increase the power that they have. Do they really have power per se? Now, when it comes to holding up legislation, yes, they could. But the Democratic Party controls all of it. This is the problem because, yes, you had progressives go into the House, but the Speaker of the House is Nancy Pelosi, and she takes corporate money, has no problem taking corporate money. This is what happens when you put a group of progressives into a party that is owned by Wall Street. All of this, I want you to think about this. The way that they vote, the decisions that they make in that house, it is all controlled by money. They don't pass any type of legislation that does not have corporate interest. And I've seen a lot of discussions about why they're not fighting. Why aren't they doing this? People are like, are they corrupt? Are they not corrupt? And there's one piece that a lot of people are leaving out, and that's the money. The Democratic Party is working exactly the way it is designed to work. All the corporations, all the people, all the big money. And I'll say this too. Justice Democrats should have been denounced the moment they took that money from George Soros. The moment they started taking billionaire money, this strategy was done. Now, tomorrow I'm doing a call-in show in the afternoon, and we're going to talk about a new strategy because this is not working. This is not working. Look at what they just did to Nina Turner. There's people in DC telling me that Cori Bush's office isn't even allowed to talk. So what power are you going to have, Amy, when you come in? What power are you going to have when they're stopping someone from speaking? I think we need to be real here. We need to be real. Anyone who does fight and try to push back on them, they're going to push them out. They'll primary challenge them. They'll call up AIPAC and say, throw in big money for their next campaign against them. They're already doing it now. Look at all the things they're doing to stop progressives in DC. And this is coming from the Democratic Party, the party that they joined. Hell, I could understand if it was the Republican Party doing this. This is coming from their own damn party, you guys. So you have people right now, you have the Democratic Party, they're trying to redraw the districts in New York City so that progressives will be put up against each other. So you may have Mondaire Jones and Jamal Bowman going up against each other. Well, only one can win. So that means that if only one can win, then only one will be going back to DC. Boop, you just lost a progressive seat. You see how this works? Why would you want to be in a party that is doing everything that they can to make you either compromise your values that you said you would fight for, or to push you out and prevent you from coming back? Why would you want to be a part of that party? Let's go back in.
The point that the squad members, because of the narrow margins in the House, could have stopped anything. They could have held up Biden's agenda as completely as Manchin and Sinema could have. Not in every instance, because there were some cases where Nancy got some Republicans to cross the line. But for things that I would argue Republicans were very unlikely because of political blowback to vote for, like a Republican was not going to vote for Nancy Pelosi to become Speaker of the House.
Yep.
You know, I mean, if they did, I would love to see that happen and let that person then suffer the electoral consequences. And maybe that's an opportunity for a Democrat to get that seat, right? But you don't get those kind of opportunities unless you force people into those situations. So I guess my question to you is, you know, I understand that there is an argument that forced the vote happened too quickly. I can't really debate that. My impression from talking to folks that have heard from electeds is that they were caught off guard, but mostly because they decided to believe that it was coming from a source that they didn't like. And because they didn't like Jimmy Dore, they were suspicious of it and didn't act quickly enough and pay attention.
let's talk about the Jimmy Dore phenomenon with Force the Vote. Now, I, like a lot of you, saw the Force the Vote town hall, and I want to remind everybody, Jimmy Dore was not the only person participating in Force the Vote. Briahna Joy Gray was a part of that. Savage Joy, who was just on here, she was a part of Force the Vote town hall. Cornell West was on there. Even Kyle Kalinske was on there. So everybody wants to point fingers at Jimmy Dore when it comes to Force the Vote, as if he was just by himself and there was nobody else on the left that wanted to do this same strategy. So I like to throw those names out there to remind people this was not just a Jimmy Dore thing. Let's go back in.
To it quickly enough because of their own bias about the messenger, which, feel how you want to feel about him. It's a little frustrating as someone who was part of that movement, along with Cornell West and Crystal Ball and Kyle Kalinske and Richard Wolff and any number of respected individuals, that our voices would be ignored. But let's just accept that happened too quickly. Next time around, people want to know, what is your approach to dealing with Nancy Pelosi, who clearly has everybody over a barrel? Would you support her again as Speaker of the House?
I've always said that my votes will never be free. And so I was asked this the other day on a talk show here locally in Las Vegas, and not if she's not on board with what my agenda is. And so I cannot in good conscience vote for someone who is not going to be supportive in pushing forward the whole reason why I'm in Congress, why I'm even in politics. And that is for healthcare and for Medicare for all. And so,
but I do want to add, because I don't know if everyone is aware of this, but Amy didn't support Force the Vote. And I know some people say, well, she wasn't in Congress at that time. Neither was Paula Jean Swearengin, and she supported it. You see what I'm saying? So she already showing you. She's already showing you. This is the thing.
Again, that's my place on it, and where I come from. I have a lot of experiences that are very relevant, and one of the reasons why I think I really would be an added benefit in Congress. I'm not just only a grieving mom. I've also had the financial backing. I know how to speak to businesses. I think that's one way that we have not done well at, is communicating how Medicare for all would benefit small businesses and medium-sized businesses, right? Because a lot of people.
I disagree with that. Bernie talked about Medicare for all over and over and over and over again. So I don't know about that. This is the thing. Like, it doesn't matter if you know how to talk to small businesses. What matters is, are you going to fight for the people that put you in? Are you going to do what you said you're going to do? That's what matters. I don't care if you know how to talk to businesses, lawyers, other corporations. That is not important to me. What matters is, what are you going to do for the voter? And so we have to start doing something differently. And I'm going to talk about this more tomorrow. I think it is time that these politicians, they need to give something to us. They need to give something to us before we vote for them, not making promises to us and then saying they're going to do it, and then they get into DC and they don't do it, because we've been playing that game for a long time. I think now we need to turn the tables a little bit here, and we need to put it in our favor, and we need to ask them, what are you going to do for my vote? Not what are you going to do after I vote for you? What are you going to do for me first? We need to start asking them to do something for us in order to get our vote, and we need to have it before we vote for them. I'd like to see that. And Case Study QB actually came up with the plan for that, how to link mutual aid and electoral politics. They need to do something for the people. What are you going to do for the people in your community? How are you going to help us? Because the voters do a lot. We do a lot, right? Some of you quit your job to canvass for these candidates, like Bernie Sanders. Nick was one of them. Some of you donated money to these candidates, right? I donated a lot of money. Bernie Sanders, AOC, the squad, I donated a lot of money. So the voters, we already do a lot, right? Then you go vote for them. Some places you stand in line for what, 10 hours now? Hello, Atlanta. And then they win. They go to DC and they don't do anything. They become a standard corporate Democrat, just like the rest. So we need to start asking them to give us something. So I like that idea that Case Study QB has, like, no, you got to do something for our vote. Because I support Medicare for all. I support a Green New Deal. I support paid parental leave. That doesn't mean anything to me what you support, because when you get in, you already got my vote. You already got my money. You already got my time canvassing for you. Then you push us out. You don't need us anymore because you're already in.
People are persuaded by the moral high ground of it, right? They want to know about the dollars. So that's another thing we need to be doing. But I also bring, an active duty military spouse. My husband's currently serving, and I'm an anti-war, anti-interventionist, 100% of the way. And when I talk about Ukraine, it's very scary to me that I hear people saying that we are already at war. These are people that have no skin in the game, do not comprehend what that means. We're not talking about another Afghanistan that is decentralized and is run by tribal elders. We are talking about a country that has nuclear weapons. And all it takes is one NATO person to get hurt, killed, and we could find ourselves in the midst of war. And I am not someone who's going to be pro anything military industrial complex. So I understand the frustration.
But they all say that, Amy. That's the thing. They all say that.
And that's where I go back to, we need to have people with different types of lived experiences and pushing in Congress. I can't speak for other people who are in Congress right now, but that is how I plan to use my voice. And I think that's necessary. I don't know that we have any progressives that have any kind of military right now in Congress or have any skin in the game. And the minute that they go into talking anything against military, well, you're anti-military, anti-American. It'd be very hard to say that.
Well, they called Tulsi Gabbard a traitor.
Married to my husband for 13 years.
So I do just want to say here really quick in reference to what she's talking about having skin in the game. Here's the people who had skin in the game. Cynthia McKinney, Dennis Kucinich, Ralph Nader. Do you see them still in Congress? No. Something to think about.
Things happen.
Right. But
is that to say, do you disagree with the choice of all of these squad members? Every Democrat voted for this $40 billion to Ukraine. Would you have voted differently?
Mm-hmm. I'm not in Congress right at the moment, but from the outset, I will not be someone who's voting for funding unnecessary foreign conflict that could lead us into World War III. And here's the thing: if we're going to be funding the military-industrial complex,
she kind of didn't answer the question. Bree asked her if she would have voted differently in reference to funding Ukraine, given that $40 billion to Ukraine. Pay close attention to what she says.
Not someone who's going to be pro anything military-industrial complex. So I understand the frustration.
She didn't ask what you're going to be doing in the future, though. She specifically asked, would you have voted differently? Amy responds to this question in a future tense.
And that's where I go back to, we need to have people with different types of lived experiences and pushing in Congress. I can't speak for other people who are in Congress right now, but that is how I plan to use my voice. And I think that's necessary. I don't know that we have any progressives that have any kind of military right now in Congress.
Sorry, I think I went back somehow.
All these squad members, every Democrat voted for this $40 billion to Ukraine.
Okay.
Would you have voted differently?
Would you have voted differently?
I mean, I'm not in Congress right at the moment, but from the outset, I will not be someone who's voting for funding unnecessary foreign conflict that could lead us into World War III. And
she's talking about the future. Bree asked you if you would have voted differently based on the 40 billion. But Amy responds in a future tense. It was just a yes or no. Like literally, like I don't understand the word salad. Like a lot of these candidates, they're doing this word salad. Like, dude, that's a yes or no. That's all you had to say.
Here's the thing. If we're going to be funding the military industrial complex, if they're going to force this, at the very least, what are you going to give back? And how are you, every dollar you spend, I want to spend on the American people. How about let's pay off some student debt? Let's pay off some Medicare for all. You want this? Let's talk. Let's communicate. But again, I think it takes like all of us bringing different elements and different experiences and lived experiences into Congress to help form a stronger, more cohesive, progressive unit. And that's what I hope I can bring into this. I feel very strongly about, my opinions on things, and it comes from my lived experience. And again, we all have a different frame of reference and a different lived experience. I mean, that's where I'm coming from.
I don't want to belabor the point, but I do think that part of why perhaps some progressives feel isolated.
Let's talk about the lived experience that Amy is mentioning here. Look, I will admit that most of the squad members did not have political experience. Ayanna Pressley did. She was my city councilor. First time she ran, and I voted for her. But there are other people who have gone in there that had similar experience like Amy has, and the Democratic Party eats them up and spits them out. They will not let them fight and push back. And the ones that did are gone. Cynthia McKinney told you on Monday when she came on my show, what did she say? That Maxine Waters told her, Cynthia, however, the leadership wants us, what they want us to do, that's what we do. That's how it works. Now, Cynthia McKinney was very outspoken in Congress. You see how they treated her, smeared her, tried to ruin her name. She decided to run with the Greens. And this is what I'm trying to tell you. We need to leave this corrupt party. We're trying to put people, it's like, if you're familiar with like fraternities and sororities, right? So fraternities and sororities, they pick who they want. So you have rush week, guys come out and go see the frat houses, girls go out and see the sorority houses, right? But at the end of the day, the sororities decide which girls they want to join their chapter. Now, at that point, you can say yes or no. You can decide not to. But they're the ones doing the picking, right? So we have these progressives going into a party that does not want them. So when they go to DC, they not only have to fight against the Republicans, which is a given, but they also have to fight against the corporate Democrats in their own damn party. They have to fight against two groups of people and try to survive. It's like joining a fraternity or a sorority or trying to be a part of a fraternity or sorority that has made it clear to you that they don't want you there. And you're still showing up trying to be their friend. That's what this is like.
It's because they've chosen not to engage with the grassroots anymore. They don't want these kinds of questions. I understand there's some people who have an approach or tone that might seem off-putting to folks, but I don't think, I hope it comes across that what I want good outcomes for you and that I like you and that I am rooting for you, as Tyra Banks would say. But there are conditions to that. Do you know what I mean? And I think that the conditions that I'm expressing are conditions that a lot of folks on the left feel. And to the extent that the left is divided, they're also divided from these figures that they helped put into office because they don't want to answer for their Iron Dome votes. And they don't want they have chosen to do what Nancy Pelosi says, which of course is going to get them criticism from the base. And so now they're alienated both from the Democratic Party establishment and from the base.
And I just want to add something in about that. If Amy wins, if she gets in, she's either going to have to go along with what Nancy Pelosi wants, what the Democratic Party wants, or they will find a way to get her out. And I'm going to be real. If Amy gets in, she's not going to be talking to us either. The same way Bree is telling you how members of the squad, like we canvassed for them, we voted for them, we donated money to them. A lot of people in left independent media gave them a platform when no one knew their name, and they will not talk to any one of us, let alone their constituents. Because talk to people in AOC's district and ask them how often they get to see and hear from AOC. And when Amy goes in, if Amy wins, Amy's going to be, it's the same thing. You think Nancy Pelosi is going to want Amy to talk to us? No. Just told you, Cori Bush's office is not allowed to talk.
Just trusting the base that got them elected, trusting the base that actually shares their values, to say, what is Nancy Pelosi going to threaten me with? Cutting off my fundraising? AOC fundraises better than pretty much anyone in the Democratic Party. I will personally, the day that one of them comes out and says Nancy Pelosi threatened to not support me and give me an endorsement or to run an opponent against me if I stood up for the people, they're immediately getting a recurring donation from me, right? Because screw Nancy Pelosi, right? I want that part. That's what a fighter looks like. Willingness to take the hit from the establishment and trust that if they do the trust fall into our arms, that the left community will buoy them, just like we are the ones that got them elected in the first place. It was independent media that put AOC on. It was Means TV that, socialist.
Had I not seen AOC on Jimmy Dore's show, I probably would have never heard of her until she won. Just being honest.
Maybe it wasn't Means TV. It was a socialist, Democratic socialist outfit that did her first campaign video. It was Glenn Greenwald interviewing her at The Intercept, was one of her first big interviews. Jimmy Dore, was her first interview in lefty media. Like these are the people that they once trusted, and if some of them have turned against them, there is some responsibility that folks have to own, that it's because they had shut the door to the left to shield themselves against a certain kind of criticism. That they could have just come and rehabilitated themselves and apologized and worked through these issues as a community, and instead that they're walled off. I don't have any access to them. I think I'm a pretty nice gal. And none of them, except for, God bless them, Ro Khanna, ever come on this show, despite inquiries having been sent out. So I really do.
And they would never come on my show. They would never come. If they're not coming on Bree's show, what does that tell you? They wouldn't come on my show. They wouldn't come on RBN. We're pretty brutal. We can be pretty mean sometimes. So they definitely wouldn't come on our show. They're not coming on Bree's show. What does that tell you? I think this is, does she respond to? No, Amy doesn't respond to that part. We need a different strategy. This is not working. So tomorrow, join me on Call In afternoon show. I am going to be discussing a new strategy for progressives. I forget what I titled it, but anyway, it's scheduled on Call In, and we need to talk about strategy. And I want to hear from all of you, because this is not working. And as long as the money is there, the corporate money, I don't see this ever working. Not this strategy. I think we need to get more independents. We need to get more third-party candidates. At this point, we need to take votes away from the Democratic Party. Let's stop having people go into this corrupt, decrepit party that continues to belittle them and shame them and tell them that you're going to have to be just like the rest of us or you're gone. Let's get rid of it. I'm going to go to some of these comments, and then I'm going to go to the next story. The Call In, I think I scheduled it for 2:30. I need to change it to 3 o'clock. So it'll be at 3 o'clock Eastern Standard Time tomorrow. Yeah, I know, Lawrence. I'll still be at the round table. That's at 6. So, but we need to talk about this because this is just not, it's not working. It's not working. And I want more people to address the money and talk about that is the core reason why we are not getting the tangibles that we need. That is the core reason why these politicians, whether in the Democratic Party or the Republican Party, are not doing for the people, that they're serving corporations, they're serving donors. That's why we don't have universal health care in this country. That's why they won't cancel student loan debt. That's why they don't want to give everybody paid leave. This is the problem. It's the money. And so let's stop pointing fingers at its individual people. So yes, I criticize, Amy's responses. But at the end of the day, my problem is not with the individual candidates. My problem is the system that they are going into. It is designed for them to either give in to the establishment or for them to fail. Zach says, we don't need expert strategizing. We need those cowards to stick to their word, which they won't. Gamer says running as a Dem is a losing strategy. She's Black. California Democratic Party has majority and they still refuse to pass Medicare for all. So the we need more progressive Dems talking point is BS. That's a perfect example. She's Black. Thank you so much for saying that, because that is a very recent example that we can point to say, look, California, look at what happened. It doesn't work. Money controls it all. Terry says, I'm changing to Green Party. I don't see Democrats doing anything for Black people. Don't even get me started on that issue, Terry. Don't even get me started on that. Like I said, for people who want advocating for reparations, I want to remind you the Green Party had reparations on their platform. Hitflix says all these progressives are trying to get that congressional retirement plan. I could see that as well. Thank you for the super chat, The Traveler. How are AOC and AOC and company going to fight when the progressive chair takes corporate money? Right? Thank you. And I know some people will come back and say, well, that's why we need Shahid Buttar in so Nancy Pelosi's gone. Do I think Shahid Buttar is better than Nancy Pelosi? 100%. Absolutely. Shahid's been on here multiple times. But I also want you to know, when Shahid Buttar, if he replaces Nancy Pelosi, it's not like he's going to be speaker. Speaker is going to be a corporate Democrat. So you're still going to have the same problem. Thank you for the super chat, Andrew. Kyle said the original name of the Justice Democrats was the Left Tea Party. Problem is, the original Tea Party was swamped with Koch brother money. That's interesting. I didn't know about that. Thank you for this super chat as well. I've been redistricted into New Jersey 07. New Jersey officials are on record talking about redrawing the districts so Tom Malinowski would win with a bigger margin. See what I was telling you guys about the districts? It's happening. Thank you for this super chat as well, Andrew. Also, are you going to give money to corporate Dems? Yeah, well, that interview is a longer interview, but that's just the segment that's posted on YouTube. I think you probably have to go to Patreon to see the full interview. So she may have asked her that. I don't know. All right, let's get into the final story tonight. As all of you know, or most of you should know, there was a school shooting in Texas. A tough situation. I wish I could say I was surprised, but I'm not. So let's go ahead and add this to the stream. I'm going to start with this video and I'm going to comment in between.
The city of Uvalde, Texas, reeling after a school shooting at an elementary school left at least 19 children and 2 adults dead. My heart was broken today. We're a small community, and we'll need your prayers to get us through this. An 18-year-old gunman drove to Robb Elementary School around midday Tuesday. He crashed his vehicle in a ditch nearby and ran toward the building, weapons in hand.
There was several law enforcement that engaged the suspect, but he was able to make entry into the school, where he did go into several classrooms, and unfortunately he did fire his firearm.
Texas State Senator Roland Gutierrez says the shooter, quote, had no problem legally purchasing the assault-style rifles used in the massacre.
Okay, let's talk about the weapons for just a second. Oh, I guess it's not gonna. Hold on.
He did fire his firearm.
Texas State Senator Roland Gutierrez says the shooter, quote, had no problem legally.
So let's talk about this for just a second. And by the way, I'm going to be a part of a panel next week to talk about gun control in this country. 19 kids, 2 adults, another school shooting. When I was a kid in elementary school, I didn't have to worry about if I was going to be safe at school. I didn't have to worry about that. These school shootings, it's like they're every year now. Now I'm going all the way back to Columbine, if I remember correctly. That might have been the first one I heard of. And yet nothing has changed when it comes to gun reform in this country. We don't have it. How on earth was this kid able to purchase these weapons? How? Somebody tell me. They said right here in the video, he had no problem getting it. How? Not having gun reform. In some states, depending on where you live, you can go to gun shows and purchase with no background check.
Purchasing the assault-style rifles used in the massacre.
He went to high school here in Uvalde, and unfortunately, on his 18th birthday, he bought those 2 assault rifles that you've been talking about. And they are assault rifles. It's the first thing he did when he turned 18.
The FBI and ATF are assisting local authorities with the investigation. Area hospitals were treating at least 20 patients. Customs and Border Protection, the largest law enforcement agency in the area, dispatched more than 20 agents to the shooting. The shooter was apprehended, but later pronounced dead.
He himself is deceased and is believed that responding officers killed him.
So one thing I want to add in here, because the gunman is deceased, we may never know the full reason of why this was even done. But that's beside the point. Now, I told you just a couple minutes ago that when I was in elementary school, I didn't have to worry about my safety at school. I didn't have to worry about someone showing up at the school and committing a mass shooting. But I think it's also important for you to know that I didn't attend elementary school in the United States. And I was thinking about this earlier today when I decided to discuss this story. We didn't have to worry about this in Germany. We really didn't. I never heard of this type of these mass school shootings happening in Germany. I never heard of this. It wasn't until we came back to the United States, that was when I was introduced to school shootings. I didn't have to worry about my safety there. These kids are just trying to be kids. They just want to go to school and learn. You can't even be a kid nowadays and go to school. And for the parents to have to sit and worry and wonder, is my child going to be okay? You shouldn't have to worry about that. Now, I say this because these happen every year. And regardless if we've had a Republican or a Democrat in office, nothing has improved in reference to gun reform. Now, do I believe like Beto that people's guns should be taken away from them? Hell no. I believe you have a right to own a gun. What I don't agree with is the fact that someone, this kid, was able to just go purchase 2 assault rifles. Had no trouble getting them, they said. Some people are not given background checks. They're just given access. And now I'm hearing Joe Biden and other people too come forward and say thoughts and prayers. Fuck the thoughts and the prayers. Don't tell me about your thoughts. Don't tell me about your prayers, because every year it continues to happen. What was it? Just a couple days ago, there was the mass shooting in Buffalo at the supermarket. Thoughts and prayers, they said. Here we are a couple days later and another mass shooting. And you want to get on TV and say thoughts and prayers. Fuck the thoughts and fuck the prayers. It doesn't work. It doesn't solve anything. What are you doing to fix this issue? Why is this continuously a problem in this country? It's this country that has the highest number of mass shootings, of school shootings. What does that tell you about our culture here in this country? The fuck is wrong with people? You can't go to the supermarket. You can't go to school. You can't go to church. That's America. And I don't see anybody, any of these politicians fixing this, doing anything about this issue. And before you jump in and say, well, that's why we need more police. No, you don't. I told you this before. Police don't really prevent crime. Did they prevent this crime at this school in Texas? No. Did they prevent the shooting at the supermarket in Buffalo? No. We need comprehensive gun reform in this country. And it comes up every year and nothing is done about it. Now, you have the Democrats in power. Nothing's done. Let's go back into the video.
It appears that 2 responding officers were struck by rounds, but have no serious injuries. What happened in Uvalde is a horrific tragedy that cannot be tolerated in the state of Texas.
The shooter is also believed to have shot his grandmother first.
What I do know is that this young man shot his grandmother and then fled that scene. The grandmother is still holding on, that she was airlifted to San Antonio.
As the predominantly Hispanic city of about 15,000 comes to terms with the attack, the school district's chief of police ruled out any other suspects in the shooting.
And we are not actively looking for another individual or any other suspects in this case. We definitely ask you all to keep the families that are involved in your prayers.
For the second time in fewer than 10 days, President Joe Biden addressed the nation after a mass shooting.
I am sick and tired of it. Why are we willing to live with this carnage? Why do we keep letting this happen?
That's a good question, Joe. You're the president. You've been a politician for over 40 years. You're asking us, why do we keep letting it happen? Why are you letting it happen? What have you done all this time that you've been in DC? What have you done? You're the president. Come on. Why do we keep letting it happen?
Where in God's name is our backbone?
Biden calling for action and demanding lawmakers stand up to the gun lobby as another community is added to the list of sites of mass shootings in the United States. There have been 30 shootings at K-12 schools so far in 2022. The Uvalde shooting makes it the worst attack on an American school since the Sandy Hook massacre in Connecticut in 2012 that left 20 children and 6 adults dead. A senator from that state, Democrat Chris Murphy, begged his colleagues to help pass gun safety laws.
Our kids are living in fear every single time they set foot in the classroom because they think they're going to be next. What are we doing? Why do you spend all this time running for the United States Senate? Why do you go through all the hassle of getting this job, of putting yourself in a position of authority? If your answer is that as this slaughter increases, as our kids run for their lives, we do nothing.
Because they just there for the money. They don't care about the people. That's why. I used to ask myself that question a long time ago too. Like, why even run? Why are you a politician if you're not going to actually fight for the issues that you ran on? Because they don't really care. They don't really care about the people. They're bought and paid for, especially the ones who have been there for decades.
Pain and passion on the floor there. Meanwhile, State Senator Gutierrez said the shooter purchased those rifles on his 18th birthday. He also said it was the first thing he did that day. Meanwhile, the parents of these 19 children are planning funerals instead of their summer vacation. They now have to find the perfect casket or urn to reflect the personality of the little life they loved and lost. John?
This is so sad. It really, we live in such a violent country. We really do. And it's one of those things that you may not realize until you live in another country, or you look at the data, you look at the stats, and you see just how violent America has become. Now, some people had something to say about this. Coach Steve Kerr was one of them. I want to go ahead and share this with you. Now, Steve Kerr is the coach for the Warriors basketball team. I should have just clicked on this in Twitter, but I guess can I do it? Oh, maybe I can. I don't know if it's taking me to his tweet. Okay, here we go. Let's hear what he had to say about it. Oh, I think it's showing the wrong one. Stop share. It was showing the wrong one. Sorry. Because Steve Kerr had some things to say. Here we go.
Killed. I'm not going to talk about basketball. Nothing's happened with our team in the last 6 hours. We're going to start the same way tonight. Any basketball questions don't matter. Since we left shoot around, 14 children were killed 400 miles from here, and a teacher. And in the last 10 days, we've had elderly Black people killed in a supermarket in Buffalo. We've had Asian churchgoers killed in Southern California. And now we have children murdered at school. When are we going to do something? I'm tired. I'm so tired of getting up here and offering condolences to the devastated families that are out there. I'm so tired of I'm tired of the moments of silence. Enough. There's 50 senators right now who refuse to vote on H.R. 8, which is a background check rule that the House passed a couple of years ago. It's been sitting there for 2 years.
Call it out.
The reason they won't vote on it, to hold on to power. So I ask you, Mitch McConnell, I ask all of you senators who refuse to do anything about the violence and school shootings and supermarket shootings, I ask you, are you going to put your own desire for power ahead of the lives of our children and our elderly and our churchgoers? Because that's what it looks like. It's what we do every week. So I'm fed up. I've had enough. We're going to play the game tonight, but I want every person here, every person listening to this to think about your own child or grandchild or mother or father or sister, brother. How would you feel if this happened to you today? We can't get numb to this. We can't sit here and just read about it and go, well, let's have a moment of silence. Yeah, go Dubs, you know. Come on, Mavs, let's go. That's what we're going to do. We're going to go play a basketball game. And 50 senators in Washington are going to hold us hostage. Do you realize that 90% of Americans, regardless of political party, want background check, universal background check? 90% of us, we are being held hostage by 50 senators in Washington who refuse to even put it to a vote, despite what we, the American people, want. They won't vote on it because they want to hold on to their own power. It's pathetic. I've had enough.
Call it out. Call it out. Because he's right. They want to hold on to their own power. They don't really care about us. MJ was right. That's Michael Jackson, for those who don't know. He had a song called They Don't Really Care About Us. 50 senators holding it up. They want to maintain their power. They want to keep their seats. They want to continue to support the NRA and whoever other donor that they have that may or may not know about that's complicit with this. Weapons manufacturers, all of them. That's right, George. 50 senators. Not even 5, 50. That's a problem. I'm going to go to some of the comments. Did I get rid of some of these? What did I do? Bill Bradley said, regulate assault weapons under the NFA like we do assault rifles, and then universal health care for mental health. There's a plan. Congressmen and women, Joe Biden, those 50 senators, here's a plan right here. When we talk about mental health, I want to remind you, not everyone can go to a therapist because their health insurance plan may not cover it, or because they don't have health insurance. Now we're circling back to the beginning of this segment when Savage Joy was on here telling you about the March for Medicare for All happening this summer in DC. This is another reason why we need Medicare for all. We need health care for everyone in this country. And for people who say, well, get a good job and you'll have health insurance and you won't have to worry about it. Not every health insurance plan offers coverage for mental health. That's an elitist way of thinking. It's connected. It's connected. She's Black said these people never speak out about the killings that our government commit in the Middle East and other places. What we are seeing from Democrats and Republicans is political theater. Agreed. Thank you for the super chat, The Traveler. Lucy McBath lost her son to gun violence. She should be pissed at her party choosing not to do anything. Dems control the Senate now and don't do crap. Thank you for reminding people of that, The Traveler. Who's in control of the Senate right now? It's incredibly sad that we had two mass shootings days apart from each other. We live in such a violent state. Justin said, may as well change the meaning of USA from the United States of America to the United States of arms manufacturers. That's what our government is in the business of doing, and our children pay the price. Well said. Well said. I wish I had better news for you guys tonight. Like when I heard about the story, I was like, fuck, not again. Not again. But I do want to make sure I get those comments on Rockfin. Are those new comments, Eric? Yes? Okay. Thank you for the tips on Rockfin, Roger. Also, there is something to be said about a bottom-up ground strategy starting in the states, then a top-down approach starting from the federal government. I see strength in a coordinated, decentralized strategic attack coming at insurance from all sides, pulling them apart by each state grabbing a limb of that spider. Sab, talking Amy, you made my argument for the state-by-state strategy. Also, it was a special court-appointed master drawing the districts, not the Democratic Party. My bad. When the Dems violated the New York State Constitution by drawing the lines, when that was the job of the redistricting commission, where when they couldn't agree on maps, Dems took over, making easier for progressives. More corporate Dem races going against each other, but only one progressive race. Let me scoot down. Joy just responded. She meant to say that CalCare in California has room for insurance companies, not the New York Health Act. Sab, you usually don't do a show on Thursday, so no call-in Friday? Huh? Oh, no, I'm doing call-in tomorrow just on the app. Only on the call-in app. Also, like I said yesterday, we are being inhumane by throwing progressives into the Democratic Party, just like throwing them into a swamp of alligators to get torn to pieces. Yes, TP was Koch funded, Justice Democrats grassroots, but still shouldn't matter. Well, Justice Democrats took money from George Soros. It started as grassroots, but then they decided to take billionaire money. And I talked to two people who worked with the organization at that time. They took that money. Thanks for this as well. Joe talking about where's the backbone in standing up to the gun lobby. Well, are you willing to stand up to Wall Street, corporate polluter, health insurance, drug company, big real estate, private equity, big tech, APAC, MIC lobby? I say you first. Let's get it all out at the same time and ban all big money from elections. Shut the revolving door between regulators and industries they regulate. We need a high tax on ammunition. Chris Rock said the same thing back in the 90s or 2000s, but he was talking about the price tag, not the tax. Thank you so much for that, Roger. Guys, don't forget to hit the like button. I forget to say that. I don't know why, but I do forget to say that a lot. But definitely hit that like button. That helps me with the algorithm. If you are new and you're not signed up for my newsletter, please sign up for my newsletter, guys. That way you'll receive alerts every time I go live. You can't just always rely on YouTube to send you that push, because sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. So my newsletter is pinned at the top of the chat. So you just click on that. You just enter your email and boom, that simple, that easy. You're signed up. That's all it takes. So definitely do that. If you're following me here, make sure you follow me on Callin, the Callin app. I'll be on there tomorrow. And then also follow me on Rockfin, Rumble, and Odyssey as well. So all of my links are in the details tab under each video. Just doing the thing. In reference to Medicare for All. So I was a part of the marches for Medicare for All last year. There were a lot of us that were a part of it. And I want to show you this really quick before I go, because this shows you all the marches. Give me just a second. And I don't think it's copyright, because it's awkward. Awkward and Jesse Jet did this. Let me see if he did it. The song originally premiered. I think I'll be fine. Otherwise, I'll just get like a copyright thing, but I think I'll be good. I'm just playing the end of it. All right. Something I want to show you from the marches from last year. Just a couple of seconds of this song. Now, this was created by Awkward and Jesse Jet. And I'm in here somewhere. You have to like squinch to find me, I think. But I'm here. Here we go.
The bills each and every year. This is how the farmer kills. Plus the 30,000 dead from no insurance, and the workers losing coverage because the boss don't need the service. We occupied Congress, bailing out big business. We march in 40 cities because it's time to end the sickness.
This will mark another day. Our insurance companies denied another claim. We're human beings, we have rights to our names. We deserve better and we'll die without a chain.
I'm not sure why Wu-Tang popped up after that, but yeah, definitely check out that video. You can watch the full song or the full video on Awkward's channel. And I think I just closed the tab. Now I got to find it again. Yep. I'll put the link in the chat. But yeah, that's Awkward and Jesse Jet. Awkward is a rapper. He's also an activist. He co-founded 10 Demands with Nick from RBN. So he does a lot. And Jesse Jet, awesome activist. Jesse made the song for my intro video that you guys love so much. So there's the link there. I just put it in the chat for that video if you want to see the full song. But yeah, let's get back out there like we did last year and do that again. This time it will only be in DC. Save the date. That is July 30th, guys. I'd love to see you there. I'm going to try to be there as much as I can. I'm going to try to. I'd have to travel, but definitely want to see you there, guys, if you can make it. We really need to raise our voices more about this, and not only when someone is running for president and has it on their platform. So I'm past my time. Have a good night. Keep up the fight.